Hey everyone, check this out. We have got more CLM, but this time we have more than just two attributes of the independent variable, country. So we're going to look, this is survey data in case anyone here is interested in survey data. So this is what you call ordinal survey data. It's from the ordinal, as you can see, ordinal package. We're going to use the CLM function. So this is poverty. So they're asking people with religion, degree, gender, etc. But we're going to focus here on country in order to get there's how many countries are there? Let's take a look here. People representing different countries. Where is it? Right there. So you've got Australia, Norway, Sweden, and the United States. So you've got a lot of survey data here, and each one represents a country. And the idea is, do we fund poverty enough? Too little, about right, too much, about right, etc. So there's definitely, for poverty, there is about 4. Yes, I'm correct. Too little, oh, there's only 3. Too little, about right, too much. Now, these are ordered. They're by an order, right? Too little, about right, then too much. So that's an order. This has to be an ordered factor because this comes from the car data package, right? This is car data package. It basically is the World Value Survey. So WVS, World Value Survey. So if you just take a look at poverty, all you have to do is ask class. This is kind of important. You see, it's a factor, but it's an ordered factor, meaning it recognizes this order. If you're doing your own or you find a data set and it's not an ordered factor, it's easy, just do as factor like you would have showed before, but also as ordered factor, and then it'll make it an order factor. But that's not the goal here. The goal is just 2 things. How do we run it like the other one? But then 2, how do we do a pairwise test? Those are the 2 things here. So it's really easy after. We're going to call this, let's say, no, not poverty. Let's just say survey data. That's what we're going to see it. We already got that other models with the word survey, so we'll call it survey data. We just use the CLM, just like you would with the LM, just like you would with the GLM, just like you would with the multinomial, as we go on and on. So the thing about R and Rstudio has a certain logic that you start tapping into. So this is survey data, CLM. What the dependent variable becomes first, that's what you're choosing in the poverty. So that would be poverty. And the independent variable, same thing, Tia tilde, is, let's just say country. And then you can put data equals there we go, it's right here, that's the data. All right, so now we just simply look at it and we do a summary. Survey data. All right, so you can see here, clearly there's a statistical significance, Norway, Sweden, USA, right? 3 stars, but that's only with Australia. So how do you do a pairwise test to get the p-value for all of these? Well, we're gonna do what we've been doing always, amines, and there's other ways to do it too. So remember the amines package is from the amines function is from the amines package, so it's very easy to get, as you've been seeing. We're gonna, what did we call this? Survey data. So then just easy. There you go. And now what's the independent variable? Country, as we ran, and now boom, hey, perfect. So what is this? So basically you're looking at it exactly like it is, and it seems to match up, right? Australia obviously, right, is higher in, too much or enough than Norway, which is more quote unquote liberal. So this is positive, right? And that is the p-value. So remember, when we do pairwise test, Australia is first. So this is it, positive, and it is statistically significant. Same thing here. The Australians think that we're doing enough for the poor people here, and it's statistically significant. But for Australia, they say not enough for the poor people we're doing for the poor people. So it's negative and statistically significant. Norway and Sweden, which are very close, still statistically significant, right? Norway, a little less generous than Sweden. So it's basically saying we're doing more a bit Sweden. Sweden is by far the most generous country. Norway, obviously, significantly less. We're not doing enough than the US, and Sweden significantly, less than things. Now, remember what we're measuring here, right? So it's basically too little, or we go up here, too little, about right, too much. So too much will be the highest. This will be higher than too little. So the more negative, this one will be negative. So Australia versus the US, Australia thinks we need to do more. Norway versus Sweden thinks we need to do just about right compared to Sweden. Sweden is by far the most liberal. So it's difficult to understand this pairwise test. I get it. But you're comparing these countries on an ordinal scale. So in this case, too much is higher. So obviously, Australia, the countries that are less generous, are going to be higher. The ones who think we're not doing enough is going to be lower. So like Australia for the United States, lower, but you see here Norway versus the US, very low Norway, and Sweden versus the US, even lower, because that number is negative 14. One of the ways you can kind of understand it, and I put it here, is, and we can just run it, is I'm going to do a ggplot for this. So it's very easy. Look at how small that code is, and it's going to help us. ggplotly, remember Plotly is the interactive ggplot. ggplot, that's right here, is the name of the data set. It has nothing to do with this per se. We're not running it. AES aesthetics, X equals poverty down here. Fill with the country, so each one is filled with country, and then plus the geom bar. This is the geom bar. So you see it matches up exactly like this, right? So if you look at this, why is Sweden the lowest, in all this, like negative 14? Because they don't even have a too much. This is Sweden. They have an about right, they have too little, but there's no Sweden here. That's why it's so incredible. Then you've got the second more generous country, Norway. Now, there are some people in Norway saying too much, right? But way more saying about right, and then even more so saying too little. You've got here, this is us, Norway, and you have way more too little, some about right, and then very few say too much. United States, don't ask me why it's purple. I didn't put any colors. This is just selected. Too little, 555. But then you've got about right, and then you've got a lot that say too much. That's why it's coming up higher than everyone else. So if you look at everyone with the US, Australia is lower, right? United States, Norway is lower, and then Sweden is lower. So when you compare those countries, you're like, oh yeah, United States is lower, right? Because it's saying it's way up here, higher, and too much. So this would be lower, somewhat low in the middle, and then high. So that's why United States is coming up low, because that's why United States compared to Norway is coming up higher. It's up here. Norway is low. Norway is, higher to Sweden, because Sweden doesn't have any here. It's a kind of a difficult thing to understand, these pairwise tests. So I get, the trepidation. However, at the same time, if you start looking at it and really take the time, and it takes us all time, we're just comparing each one. Australia to USA, Norway to Sweden, Norway to USA, Sweden to US. The reason why Sweden, right, is so much lower, right, because it's like than the United States. The United States is super high over here. So this is like the US, and this is called a legend up here that'll tell you the colors. So this is the US here. That's a lot relative to the amount of people doing the survey. It even beats out, let's take a look. How many said it's 555 say too little? 450. So interestingly enough, the United States still has more saying too little than too much, which is interesting. But these countries are just saying way too little, helping the poor. And Australia, as you can see, in the United States has a pretty good portion. But still, even Australia beats the United States in the too little camp. So that's what it's comparing. So it's kind of interesting. So the higher is here. That's why when you compare Sweden to the United States, it's so much lower Sweden because it's down here. Tough to kind of understand. I get it. It takes a bit, but try your best to get it. But the goal here is to understand we're doing ordinal regression. Because it's ordinal, you need to have a ordered factor, right? These are all ordered here, right? Too little, about right, too much. And then you just use the CLM function, which is similar to the LM and GLM function. It's just doing ordinal regression opposed to regular regression. I hope you're able to understand this, and take care, everyone.